Yeah, finally with a bit of effort I've been able to undo this fork top bolt. It wasn't easy. Ooh. There's a washer and the spring of course jumped up. Okay, so this is what went flying. There's the spring in there, there was a washer, and there's a brass, I would say it's a spacer for preload I guess, and that goes in there and then that screws in, so a fair bit of force is required to get it down. And then I can loosen up the pinch bolt on the bottom clamp. There looks to be a little wave washer in there. And now I should be able to just slide the fork. Yeah, it won't budge, it's pretty well stuck and the screw's fully undone. I've been knocking it with a hammer, it won't release, so I'm going to open up. There's a little split here in the triple clamp, and I'm just going to try and split it a little bit more open. See, that's done a little bit of, yep, that's it, that's done it. Okay, so it's going down now. Right, I've got the fork on the vise, and I'm going to try and remove the bolt that secures the caliper, which was very difficult to remove while it was on the bike, and I think I flattened some of the points, so hopefully I'll still be able to remove it. Right, I've managed to unscrew it, and a little spring came out with it, and manual says now to insert an 8mm by 50 long screw. There's a little bearing pin in there, and as you withdraw it you can then remove the caliper. Right, I removed the gator and inspected it, and it looks in pretty good nick. It's got some fine crackings or cracks along some of the folds there, but not right through, so I'm going to keep them and keep using them. The spring is out, and I've just measured it, and it's supposed to be 567 minimum as the free length, and that's pretty much spot on, 567. So the spring's good, but I've been toying with the idea of either a progressive spring or even some Racetech springs with gold valve emulators. I've had very good results on my sports bike, on the SV650, so maybe I'll go with that, I'm not sure. I've got to remove this little plastic or rubber cap from the bottom bolt, bottom cap, and it's falling apart, so I'm just going to try and pry it out. Yeah, I'm going to have to get a replacement for that. I believe that would be the damper bolt, and it's actually a hex. It looks to be a 4mm hex, okay, but you don't just turn it. What you got to do is you got to hold that nut, and to do that you need to put a wrench or a socket, a 13mm socket, and the manual says to grind 2 flats, so you can put a spanner on it and stop it from rotating. You can also put it on a vice grip and stop it from rotating, either way, so that when you put the Allen socket in there, you can stop the nut from rotating. Now vice versa, you stop the damper bolt from rotating and undo the nut. Yeah, it's supposed to be a washer with this nut, but there wasn't one. So we'll see if we replace that. And I should be able to separate the slider from the tube. Out it comes. And yeah, there's some nice gravy on this. Yeah, nice. Pretty shitty stuff. So the oil looked quite clear, but there's a lot of gunk inside the actual fork itself. So maybe the oil was changed at some point, but the whole fork wasn't serviced. I've got to remove a little circlip from there. I always have a lot of trouble with circlips. And that's the lower ring that has to be unscrewed, and I'm not too sure with what. I'll try this. Yep. So yeah, above the lower threaded ring there's a little spacer, and above that is the upper threaded ring, which unscrews in the same fashion as the lower one, except it's a little bit deeper in. Now that's the lower and that's the upper, but I just measured them and they look exactly the same, so it doesn't really matter if you mix them up, and both sides look exactly the same. So now I can remove the damper rod, and you'll see there's a spring there, a little spring underneath this little spacer there, and other bits and pieces which I will look at in a moment. And now I can disassemble the damper rod. I'll remove the little cap from there. Right, that wasn't easy. I had to apply a little bit of heat, and finally it gave way. Yes, so there's a little spring in there. Ouch! Hot. Little spring, and there should be a ball in there as well. Yep, little ball. On the other side, I've got that bolt that I want to remove. It's again number 13. I just applied a little bit of heat. Well, that was hard work. What I had to do was put a little drift. I'll just show you. Yeah, so there's holes there on the damper rod, and I put a little drift or a screwdriver in through that so that it would lock against the vise and not turn. And I had to use a lot of WD-40 and a lot of heat, and eventually it gave way. Still a bit hot, so I'll just let it cool down a bit. Yes, I can now remove it, and there should be, okay, in here there are 3 little wiper, oops, still a bit hot. There are 3 little wiper rings, like piston rings, and they're used to wipe, I guess, the inner tube as the damper rod goes up and down, or is it, yeah. Anyway, here there's this spacer or washer, the spring, and that's it. From the top of the fork slider I can remove the oil seal. Okay, sometimes if that doesn't work, a bit of heat will. Now from the bottom of the fork slider I can remove the bottom cap bolt, 36mm. Ah, look at this. Nice. And there's a plastic, a plastic bushing. Let's see if you can see this properly. Yeah, plastic bushing that is disintegrating in front of my eyes. Yep. That's why every once in a while you need to service the forks. Okay, I've got the caliper in the vise and I've got the brake pads there, and if you want to see, they wear unevenly, so they wear in a sort of like a trapezoidal shape, so it's thicker here but thinner on the other side and vice versa, but at the thinnest point it's about less than 2mm, and the service limit is 1.5mm, so that looks good enough to change to me. Not only that, they look like they're about 100 years old. Of course they're not. Alright, so I can remove this little retaining pin. Maybe I'll get a new one. And now I can remove the brake pads. 1 and 2. Okay, that one's got an O-ring, the other one doesn't. And now I want to remove the piston, but it's best not to use anything hard to try and pry it. Compressed air is the best thing. So I'm going to put a little block in there, and then I'm going to apply compressed air through that hole there, which is the brake fluid feed, and force it out. You got to keep your fingers out of the way. That's all. Right, I've turned it so you can see the bore where the piston goes, and there is a seal in there, and it should be replaced. Yeah, that's better. And I can remove the bleed valve, and that rubber cap looks pretty rotten. Yeah. So I'll replace that. And I'll remove, ooh, that's caked up with a little bit of lime and rust. Put it in the ultrasonic or clean it up, and that should clear up nicely.